The ship was dying. Everyone aboard knew it. Jethro Solinvest stood at the observation window and watched the endless black of space. No stars shone here. The Corvin expanse was a dead zone between the great spiral arms of the galaxy. Nothing lived here. Nothing traveled here. Ships that entered this place rarely left. The medical frigate, Velithnar, had not meant to come here. But the hollow swarm had given them no choice. 16 days ago, the bioships had attacked without warning. The Velithnar was not a warship. It carried no weapons worth mentioning. It was a rescue vessel, filled with refugees from the border wars. 2,400 souls from a dozen different species. Wounded soldiers, families with children. The old and the sick. The swarm did not care. They never cared. Captain Morath had ordered an emergency jump. The navigation computer picked the only route that might save them. It sent them here, to the place where no signals escaped and no help would come. The jump had worked. They escaped the swarm. But something broke during the crossing. The main engines failed. The backup systems followed. Now the Velithnar drifted like a dead leaf on a black ocean. Jethro turned from the window and walked through the corridors. She was young for a Ketherani, her feathers still bright blue and gold. As a diplomatic liaison, she had trained to speak calmly in any situation, but she had no words for this. The ship groaned around her. Metal stressed and complained. The air smelled wrong. The recyclers were failing. She passed a medical bay where wounded soldiers lay in rows. A Toruan nurse moved between them, checking their breathing. The nurse looked up at Jethro with tired eyes but said nothing. There was nothing to say. In another section, she found families huddled together. Children clung to their parents. Some were crying. Others had stopped crying days ago. They simply stared at nothing with empty eyes. Jethro remembered the first day after the engines died. Everyone had been hopeful then. Captain Morath sent distress signals on every frequency. Surely someone would hear. Surely help would come. But no one answered. Day after day, the silence continued. The Corvin expanse swallowed their cries like a hungry beast. No patrol ships came. No traders passed by. They were utterly alone. On the 8th day, the main power grid began to fail. The engineers worked without sleep to keep it running. They succeeded, but only partly. The ship grew cold. The lights dimmed. On the 12th day, the food synthesizers stopped. Rationing began. Adults gave their portions to the children. Now it was the 16th day. The ship's computer had made its final calculation. 72 hours until total system collapse. 3 days. Then the air would run out. Then the cold would take them. Then they would join the eternal silence of the void. Jethro climbed to the upper decks where the Kethrani refugees had gathered. Her people believed that death was not an end, but a passage. When a Kethrani died, their spirit flew to join the great flock in the skies beyond the sky. The elders had begun the passage hymns. Their voices rose and fell in ancient harmonies. The song was beautiful and terrible. It was a farewell to life. Jethro did not join them. She could not. Something inside her refused to accept this ending. She returned to the observation deck. The window showed only darkness. Infinite, uncaring darkness. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Captain Morath approached and stood beside her. He was Selvari, his skin the blue-green of deep ocean waters. His people had evolved in the seas of a world now lost to war. He had seen much death in his long life, but never like this. Liaison Solinvas, he said quietly. You should be with your people. I will join them soon, she replied. I just wanted to look once more. At what? There is nothing out there. I know. She pressed her hand against the cold glass. But I keep hoping. Morath was silent for a moment. Then he said, Hope is a strange thing. It serves no logical purpose. It changes nothing about our situation, and yet we cling to it. Is that wrong? No. Perhaps it is the only thing that makes us more than animals. He paused. I have stopped sending distress signals. There is no point. The power is needed elsewhere. Jethro nodded. She understood. They stood together in silence, watching the void. Minutes passed. The ship creaked and groaned. Then something happened. At first, Jethro thought her eyes were playing tricks. A shimmer in the darkness. A ripple, like heat waves rising from hot stone. She blinked and looked again. Captain, she whispered. Do you see that? Morath leaned forward. His eyes went wide. The ripple grew larger. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. Then, with a flash of light that hurt to look at, a ship appeared. It was not like any vessel Yethra had seen before. The design was crude and angular. The hull was thick and heavy, covered in armor plates that looked almost primitive. No smooth curves. No elegant lines. Just brutal, practical shapes built for one purpose: to survive. What is that? Yethra breathed. Morath studied the markings on the hull. Letters in a script that was becoming familiar across the galaxy, though few had actually encountered the species that used it. Humans, he said. That is a human ship. Yethra felt her heart beating faster. Humans. She knew of them, of course. Everyone did. They had joined galactic society only 40 years ago. A young species. Primitive by most standards, they had no great empire. No ancient wisdom. The major powers treated them as children playing at civilization. What was a human ship doing here? How had they even found this place? The communication console on the wall crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking galactic common with a strange accent. The words were awkward but clear. Unknown vessel. This is the UES Adamantine. We heard your call. We are here to help. Please respond. Morath moved to the console. His hands trembled as he activated the transmitter. Adamantine, this is Captain Morath of the medical frigate Velith Nar. We are in desperate need of assistance. Our engines are dead. Life support is failing. We have 2,400 souls aboard. A pause. Then the voice returned. Understood, Velith Nar. Hold tight. Help is here. Yethra felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. Behind her, she heard shouts from the corridor. Word was spreading through the ship. Other refugees came running to the observation deck. They pressed against the windows, staring at the angular human vessel that hung in the void before them. A Torun child tugged at her mother's arm. Mama, what is that ship? Humans, the mother whispered. The humans came. Why? The mother had no answer. Yethra watched as the Adamantine moved closer. Running lights flickered along its hull. A shuttle bay opened, spilling golden light into the darkness. She thought about everything she had learned about humans. They were considered unremarkable, weak compared to the Torun, less intelligent than the collective, shorter-lived than the Selvari. They had nothing special to offer the galaxy, and yet they were here. They had crossed the void to answer a call from strangers. They had come to a place where no one else would go. They had done what every other species in the galaxy had failed to do. They had come. Yethra did not know what would happen next. She did not know if the humans could save them. Their ship looked old and battered. What could one vessel do against the slow death that crept through the Velith Nar? But for the first time in 16 days, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The humans had heard them. The humans had come. And somehow, against all logic, Yethra believed that everything would be different now. Chief Engineer Morvax Gell had built starships for 60 years. He knew every system, every component, every wire and circuit that made a vessel function. He took pride in his work. The Torun way was precision, elegance, perfection. What the humans brought aboard the Velith Nar was none of these things. Morvax stood in the docking bay and watched the human shuttle land. The craft was ugly. Its hull was scarred and dented. Patches of different metals covered old damage like bandages on a wounded animal. The landing was rough. The engines whined in a way that made Morvax wince. The hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air. 12 figures emerged. They were smaller than Morvax expected, soft-skinned, with no scales or armor. Their bodies looked fragile, but they moved with purpose, carrying cases of equipment and supplies. Their leader was a female called Commander Elena Vasquez. She had dark hair cut short and eyes that seemed to look through everything. She walked straight to Captain Morath and shook his hand in the human greeting. Captain, I'm Commander Vasquez. We're here to help. Morath seemed unsure how to respond. Commander, we are grateful, but I must be honest. Our situation is very bad. I do not know if there is anything you can do. Vasquez smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had heard such words before. Let's find out, she said. Show me your ship. Morvax followed as Vasquez toured the dying vessel. He watched her examine the failed systems. He explained the problems in detail. The reactor containment was unstable. The life support was running on backup power. The hull had stress fractures in 17 locations. Vasquez listened carefully. She asked questions. Then she turned to her team and began giving orders. Torres, Chen, get down to engineering. I want a full diagnostic on that reactor. Kim, take your squad to Deck 7. Start patching those hull breaches. Everyone else, unload the supplies and set up a medical station. The humans scattered like insects. They did not wait for permission. They did not form committees to discuss options. They simply went to work. Morvax hurried after the two engineers heading to his domain. He found them already pulling panels off the reactor housing, examining the damaged components inside. This is highly dangerous, he warned. The containment field is unstable. One mistake could cause a cascade failure. The human called Torres looked up. He was young, with brown skin and quick hands. I know. That's why we need to fix it. Fix it? The damage is beyond repair. We have tried everything. Torres shook his head. You tried everything you knew. Let us try some things we know. Morvax watched in horror as the humans began their work. Their methods were crude. They used hand tools where precision instruments were required. They made adjustments by feel rather than calculation. They argued with each other, changed plans, improvised solutions on the spot. It was chaos. It was madness. No proper engineer would work this way, and yet, somehow, it was working. Within 2 hours, the reactor output had stabilized. Within 4 hours, the containment field was holding steady. The humans did not fix the system properly. They jury-rigged it. They held it together with patches and prayers. But it worked. Commander Vasquez appeared in engineering. She was not watching the repairs. Instead, she was walking through the refugee sections, speaking to the people huddled in the corridors. Morvax followed her. He watched her kneel beside a Kathrani child and ask his name. He watched her sit with an elderly Selvari and listen to stories of the home he had lost. He watched her promise each person she met that they would survive. Commander, Morvax said finally, you should not make promises you cannot keep. Vasquez looked at him. Who says I can't keep them? Our situation is still desperate. Even with the reactor stable, we cannot move. We cannot call for help. The hollow swarm may return at any time. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. How? Your ship is one vessel, old and small. What can you possibly do against the swarm? Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Engineer, let me tell you something about humans. We don't calculate odds before we act. We don't decide if something is possible before we try. We just do what needs to be done. That is illogical. Maybe. But those kids in Deck 7 need air tonight. Everything else can wait. She walked away. Morvax stood alone, trying to understand these strange creatures. Hours passed. The humans worked without rest. They patched hull breaches. They repaired water recyclers. They distributed food from their own supplies. They did not complain. They did not slow down. Then Torres found the real problem. The reactor was stable, but the power distribution system was not. A critical component had been damaged during the attack. Without it, they could not send power to the outer sections of the ship. Life support would fail there first. The component could be replaced. But to do so, someone would have to enter the reactor chamber while it was active. The radiation would be lethal. Even the best protection suits could not block it completely. How long? Vasquez asked. 15 minutes to do the work, Torres replied. Maybe 20 with thick gloves. And the exposure? Torres was silent for a moment. Fatal. Maybe an hour after leaving the chamber. Maybe less. Morvax felt cold. Then it cannot be done. We cannot ask anyone to die. The humans looked at each other. Something passed between them. Some silent communication that Morvax did not understand. Torres stepped forward. I'll do it. No, Morvax said. This is madness. There must be another way. There isn't. Torres was already removing his outer jacket, preparing to put on the radiation suit. Those people out there are counting on us. I'm not going to let them down. Commander Vasquez gripped his shoulder. Her face was hard, but her eyes were wet. Torres, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He smiled at her. Besides, someone has to show these aliens what humans are made of. The other humans gathered around him. They spoke quietly. Some embraced him. One pulled out a small device and played music. Strange, loud music with heavy rhythms and screaming voices. Torres laughed and nodded his head to the beat. Rock and roll. he said to Morvax. Good dying music. Then he entered the chamber. Morvax watched through the shielded window. Torres moved quickly despite the bulky suit. His hands were steady. He worked with the same crude efficiency as all the humans, but there was grace in it now. Purpose. 15 minutes passed. 20. 25. The repair was complete. Torres emerged from the chamber. He walked under his own power, though his steps were unsteady. The other humans caught him as he stumbled. Did it work? He asked. Morvax checked the systems. Power flowed to the outer decks. Life support hummed back to life. Warmth began spreading through the frozen corridors. Yes, Morvax said quietly. It worked. Torres smiled. Good. That's good. They laid him down in the medical bay. The human doctors gave him medicine for the pain, but there was nothing more they could do. The radiation had done its work. Commander Vasquez sat beside him, holding his hand. You're a hero, Torres. No, he replied. His voice was growing weak. I'm just a guy who couldn't let kids die. Any of us would have done the same. Morvax stood in the doorway, watching. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen courage and sacrifice, but never like this. Torres died 3 hours later. He did not cry out or complain. He simply closed his eyes and stopped breathing. The humans mourned. But they did not stop working. Morvax returned to engineering. He looked at the crude repairs, the improvised solutions, the patches that held the ship together. He thought about Torres, who had given his life for strangers he had never met. He had been wrong about the humans. They were not primitive. They were not crude. They were something else entirely. Something that Morvax had never encountered in all his years. They were simply unwilling to let others die. And for them, that was enough. Yethra found Commander Vasquez standing alone on the observation deck. The human woman stared out at the void. Her face reflected faintly in the dark glass. She looked tired. Dark circles hung under her eyes. Her uniform was stained with grease and other things Yethra did not want to identify. But she was still standing. Still working. Still fighting. Commander, Yethra said softly. May I speak with you? Vasquez turned. She managed a small smile. Of course. What's on your mind? Yethra approached the window and stood beside her. For a moment, they watched the darkness together in silence. I wanted to thank you, Yethra said finally, for everything your people have done. For Torres. Vasquez's jaw tightened at the name. He was a good man. One of the best. He died for strangers. People he had never met. People who are not even his species. Yethra shook her head. I do not understand it. What's to understand? People were in trouble. We helped. But why? The question had burned in Yethra's mind since the moment the human ship appeared. The Kethrani are not your allies. We have no treaty with humanity. We have given your people nothing. The galaxy ignores you, dismisses you as primitives. And yet you came here, to the void, to save us. Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. You really want to know why? Yes, because you were dying. Vasquez turned to face her. That's it. That's the whole reason. You were dying, and we could help. Nothing else mattered. Yethra struggled to process this. But the risk, the cost. Torres gave his life. Your ship could have been destroyed. How can that be worth it for strangers? Because strangers are just friends we haven't met yet. Vasquez laughed quietly at her own words. That sounds stupid when I say it out loud. But it's true. At least, it's true for humans. I do not think any other species in the galaxy thinks this way. Maybe not. But we do. Vasquez looked back at the void. When I was a little girl, my grandmother used to tell me stories. Old stories from Earth, from before we reached the stars. Stories about heroes who saved people not for reward or glory, but because it was the right thing to do. And you believed these stories? I tried to live them. Vasquez shrugged. We all do. Every human. We grow up hearing about sacrifice and courage and doing good, and we try to make those stories real. Yethra felt something stirring in her chest, an emotion she could not name. Perhaps it was admiration. Perhaps it was something deeper. Your people are very strange, Commander. I know. Vasquez smiled. But we're your kind of strange, aren't we? Before Yethra could answer, the ship's alarm began to wail. Red lights flashed along the corridors. The sound was harsh and urgent. Yethra had heard it before. 16 days ago, when the hollow swarm first attacked, Captain Morath's voice came over the intercom. All hands to emergency stations. We have incoming contacts. Multiple signatures. The swarm has returned. Yethra's blood went cold. No. Not again. Not when they had finally found hope. She ran to the bridge with Vasquez close behind. The main view screen showed a tactical display of the surrounding space. Red dots were appearing at the edge of sensor range. 1, 5, 10. More and more. Emerging from wherever the swarm hid between attacks. 17 contacts. The sensor officer reported. His voice shook. All bioships. They're heading straight for us. 17. Yethro remembered what a single bioship could do. One had nearly destroyed a battle cruiser during the border wars. 17 was a death sentence. Captain Morath stood rigid at his command post. His scales had gone pale. How long until they reach us? At current speed, 40 minutes. 40 minutes. 40 minutes until the end. Vasquez stepped forward. Her face had changed. The tired woman from the observation deck was gone. In her place stood a warrior. Captain, I need to return to my ship. Morath turned to her. Commander, you should flee while you can. The adamantine cannot fight that many. We're not leaving. You will die. Vasquez shook her head. Maybe. But we're not leaving these people to face the swarm alone. Why? The word tore from Morath's throat. Why would you throw away your lives for us? Because that's who we are. Vasquez was already moving toward the door. Keep your people calm, Captain. We'll handle this. She was gone before anyone could stop her. Yethro watched the view screen as the human shuttle raced back to the adamantine. The small ship looked impossibly fragile against the vastness of space, and beyond it, growing closer with every passing second, came the swarm. The bioships were nightmares given form, living vessels grown from alien flesh and bone. They had no mercy, no reason, no purpose except destruction. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what they wanted. They simply appeared, attacked, and vanished. Entire fleets had fallen before them. Worlds had burned. And now 17 of them converged on one crippled medical frigate and one battered human ship. On the view screen, the adamantine began to move. Its engines flared bright. It turned toward the approaching swarm. What are they doing? Morath whispered. Yethra knew. She did not want to believe it, but she knew. The adamantine was moving to intercept. One ship against 17. 12 humans against creatures that had destroyed civilizations. The communication system crackled. Commander Vasquez's voice filled the bridge. Velithnar, this is adamantine. We're going to buy you time. I need you to do something for me. Anything, Morath replied. Keep your people calm. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on. A pause. And whatever happens, don't give up. Commander, you cannot win this fight. Static hissed for a moment. Then Vasquez spoke again, and her voice was steady as stone. Captain, I've never won a fight in my life, but I've never lost one that mattered. The channel closed. Yethro watched the adamantine accelerate toward the swarm. Running lights blazed along its hull. Weapon ports opened. The ship that had seemed so crude and primitive now looked like something else entirely. It looked like defiance. The refugees had gathered in the corridors, watching whatever screens they could find. Children hid behind their parents. The elderly clutched each other's hands. Everyone knew what was coming. A Toruan mother looked at Yethro with desperate eyes. Can the humans save us? Yethro did not know how to answer. The odds were impossible. Logic said they would all die in the next hour, but logic had said no one would come. Logic had said they were alone in the void. Logic had been wrong. Yes, Yethro said. The humans will save us. She did not know if it was true, but she believed it anyway. On the screen, the adamantine reached weapons range of the first bioship. Fire erupted between them. The battle had begun. 12 humans against the end of the world. And, somehow, impossibly, Yethro believed in them. Captain Morath had fought in 12 campaigns. He had commanded vessels in battles that decided the fate of worlds. He had seen every tactic, every strategy, every form of warfare that the galaxy's great powers could devise. He had never seen anything like this. The adamantine did not fight like any ship he knew. The great powers fought with mathematics. They calculated angles and distances. They moved in precise formations. They retreated when the odds turned against them. The humans did none of these things. The adamantine flew like a creature possessed. It dove and spun and twisted through space in patterns that should have torn it apart. It took hits that should have crippled it. Its hull burned and bled atmosphere. And still, it kept fighting. Impossible, Morath whispered. That maneuver should have broken their spine. Beside him, Chief Engineer Morvax shook his head. Their ship is not elegant, Captain. It is built like a hammer, crude, heavy, nearly indestructible. On the view screen, the adamantine unleashed a barrage of missiles at the nearest bioship. The living vessel tried to evade, but the human weapons tracked it, adjusted, pursued. The explosions tore through organic armor. The bioship shuddered and began to drift. 1 down, 16 to go. But the swarm was closing in. More bioships converged on the human vessel. Acid sprays and organic projectiles hammered its shields. Warning lights flashed across the tactical display. Adamantine is taking heavy damage, the sensor officer reported. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Their shields are failing. Morath gripped the arms of his command chair. Commander Vasquez, you must withdraw. You cannot survive this. The communication channel crackled with static and the sounds of chaos. Alarms wailed in the background. Somewhere, metal screamed. Vasquez's voice came through, rough and breathless. Negative, Velethnar. We're just getting started. The adamantine turned sharply. So sharply that Morath winced in sympathetic pain. It dove beneath a bioship and raked its belly with concentrated fire. The creature howled across every frequency as its insides spilled into space. 2 down, but the cost was mounting. The human ship trailed debris. Flames flickered along its hull where atmosphere burned as it escaped. On the tactical display, its power signature was dropping. How are they still fighting? A young officer asked. His voice trembled. Morvax answered quietly. They do not know how to stop. 3 more bioships fell in the next 10 minutes. The adamantine fought with a fury that defied reason. It used its own body as a weapon, ramming when guns failed, taking blows meant for the Velethnar, sacrificing piece after piece of itself to destroy the enemy. 7 down, 10 remained. The bioships began to change their tactics. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found a nightmare wrapped in metal. They spread out, trying to surround the human vessel, to overwhelm it with numbers. It almost worked. 4 bioships attacked simultaneously from different angles. The adamantine could not dodge them all. Acid burned through its armor. Organic tendrils wrapped around its hull, trying to crush it. They're trapped, the sensor officer said. Hull integrity at 30%. Life support failing on multiple decks. Morath watched in horror. The humans were dying. Dying to protect strangers. Dying because they refused to abandon people they had never met. On the view screen, the adamantine's weapons fell silent. Its engines sputtered and failed. The ship drifted, tangled in the grip of the bioships. Then the humans did something unexpected. They detonated their own reactor containment. The explosion was not enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to shatter the tendrils holding it. The bioships reeled back, wounded by the blast. The adamantine tumbled free, burning, broken, but still intact, still fighting. Morath heard cheering from somewhere on his own ship. The refugees had seen the impossible survival. They were shouting, crying, praying. 8 bioships down. 9 remained, but the adamantine was dying. Its hull was more whole than metal. Its weapons fired sporadically. It could barely maneuver. Commander Vasquez, Morath called. Please, you have done enough. Withdraw. The response came slowly. Vasquez's voice was weak, filled with pain. Can't do that, Captain. 3 of them are breaking off. Heading for your ship. Morath looked at the display. She was right. 3 bioships had separated from the main group. They were coming for the Velethnar. We cannot stop them, Morath said. Our weapons are useless. I know. A pause. That's why I'm going to. The adamantine turned. Its remaining engine fired one last time. The broken ship began to accelerate, aiming itself at the lead bioship. Commander, what are you doing? What I have to. Vasquez coughed. Blood, probably. Tell your people to watch. Tell them this is what humans do. The adamantine struck the bioship at full speed. The collision was devastating. Both vessels crumpled together in a storm of fire and debris. The bioship died instantly. The adamantine broke apart, spinning away in pieces. Silence fell across the bridge of the Veleth Nar. Then, slowly, impossibly, a voice came through the static. Adamantine to Veleth Nar. Still here. Most of us, anyway. Vasquez laughed weakly. 2 more down. How many left? 7. Morath replied. His voice cracked. 7 bioships remain. Commander, your ship is destroyed. Yeah, I noticed. Another cough. But we're not done yet. How? You have no weapons, no engines. What can you possibly do? The channel went quiet for a moment. Then Vasquez spoke again. Captain, I sent a signal before the battle started. A distress call. To my people. The Corvan expanse blocks all signals. No one can hear us here. Humans don't use normal channels. We have our own network. Deep space relays. Emergency beacons. It's slow. It's crude. But it works. Even if someone received your signal, they could never arrive in time. We are too far from any human territory. Vasquez laughed again. This time, there was something else in the sound. Something that made Morath's scales tingle. Captain, you don't know humans very well. When we hear that someone needs help, we don't check the maps first. Before Morath could respond, the sensor officer shouted, Contact, multiple contacts, ships dropping out of FTL. The view screen flickered. The darkness of the void split open. Light poured through the cracks as space itself tore apart. Ships emerged. Not 1, not 2, 37. Human ships. Battleships and carriers and destroyers. An entire fleet appearing from nowhere. From impossibility. From the depths of space that no civilization should be able to cross so quickly. They formed a wall between the swarm and the crippled vessels. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Fighters launched from carrier bays. A new voice boomed across all frequencies. Strong. Clear. Absolutely certain. This is Admiral Chen of the Third Fleet. You are attacking vessels under human protection. You have 10 seconds to withdraw or be destroyed. The bioships hesitated. For the first time in anyone's memory, the hollow swarm stopped advancing. 10, 9, 8. The bioships turned. 7, 6, 5. They began to flee. 4, 3, 2. Space lit up with human weapons fire. 2 more bioships died before the others escaped into the void. Then silence. Morath stared at the view screen. Around him, his crew wept openly. In the corridors, refugees screamed with joy. The voice of Commander Vasquez came through one last time. Barely a whisper. Told you, Captain. Help was coming. Then the channel went dead. The human fleet surrounded the Veleth Nar like a shield. Medical ships docked with the crippled frigate. Engineers swarmed through its corridors. Supplies flowed in endless streams. Yethra walked through the ship and saw humans everywhere. A human doctor treated a Kethrani child's wounds with gentle hands. A human engineer crawled through tight spaces to repair systems that had failed days ago. A human soldier carried an elderly Selvari who could no longer walk. They asked for nothing in return. They simply helped. Yethra found Commander Vasquez in the medical bay of the flagship. The human woman lay in a bed surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. Her face was pale. Bandages covered most of her body, but her eyes were open, and she smiled when she saw Yethra enter. Liaison Solinvas, Vasquez said. Her voice was weak but warm. Good to see you made it. Yethra approached the bed. She did not know the proper human customs for such moments, so she simply bowed her head in the Kethrani way. Commander, your people have saved us. All of us. I do not have words sufficient to express our gratitude. Vasquez shook her head slightly. Don't thank me. Thank the fleet. Thank Admiral Chen. I just held the line until they got here. You nearly died. Part of the job. Vasquez shifted, wincing at the movement. How's the Veleth Nar? Your engineers say it will fly again within a week. The refugees are being transferred to your medical ships. Everyone will survive. Yethra paused. Because of you. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Did you hear about Torres? Yes. Yethra remembered the young engineer who had walked into the reactor chamber knowing he would not survive. I heard what he did. We're having a ceremony later today. To honor him. Vasquez looked at the ceiling. He was 26 years old. He had a wife back on Earth, a kid on the way, and he walked into that chamber without hesitating. Would like to attend the ceremony, if that is permitted. Of course. Everyone is welcome. The ceremony took place in the hangar bay of the flagship. Hundreds of humans gathered in neat rows. But they were not alone. Refugees from the Velethanar filled the spaces between them. Kithrani and Selvari and Toruun stood shoulder to shoulder with the humans who had saved them. Admiral Chen spoke first. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. His words were simple. Today, we honor Engineer First Class Miguel Torres. He gave his life so that others might live. There is no greater sacrifice. There is no greater love. A human woman stood nearby, her eyes red from crying. Torres's wife, Yethra realized. She had come all this way, across the galaxy, to say goodbye. The humans sang a song. Yethra did not understand all the words, but she understood the feeling. It was a song of farewell, a song of gratitude, a song of love that transcended death. When it ended, the Kithrani elders stepped forward. Without being asked, they began to sing the passage hymns. The two songs merged. Human voices and Kithrani voices rose together, filling the hangar with sound. Other species joined in their own way. The Selvari hummed low notes. The Toruun beat their chests in rhythm. For a moment, all the different peoples were one. Torres's body was launched into space in a small capsule. It would drift through the void forever, a permanent monument to human courage. After the ceremony, Yethra found herself standing with Captain Morath and Chief Engineer Morvax. They watched the human fleet through a viewport. I have been thinking, Morath said slowly, about what we witnessed. As have I, Morvax replied. I spent 200 years believing that the Toruun way was superior. Precision, logic, elegance. But I was wrong. Yethra nodded. The humans are not elegant. They are not logical. But they are something else. What? Morath asked. Yethra thought of Torres walking into the reactor. She thought of Vasquez refusing to retreat. She thought of a fleet crossing impossible distances to save strangers. They are brave, she said. But that is not the right word. They are kind. But that is not enough either. She struggled to find the truth. They are connected to everyone, to everything. They see suffering and they cannot ignore it. They see people in danger and they must act. It is not a choice for them. It is who they are. Morath was silent for a long moment. Then he said, the galaxy has ignored humanity for 40 years. We saw them as children, primitives, unworthy of attention. We were fools, Morvax said. Yes, we were. The human fleet began to move. Escort vessels formed up around the Velethnar. They would travel together to safe space. Yethra returned to her quarters and began composing her report to the Galactic Council. She had been trained for this. Diplomatic reports, official language, proper formats. But when she sat down to write, all her training seemed useless. How could she capture what had happened in official language? How could forms and formats express what she had witnessed? She deleted 3 drafts before she found the words. To the Galactic Council, she wrote, this is Liaison Officer Yethra Solinvas, reporting on the events in the Corvan Expanse. 16 days ago, the medical frigate Velethnar was attacked by the Hollow Swarm and left stranded in dead space. 2,400 refugees waited to die. No help was coming, but help came anyway. A single human ship, the UES Adamantine, answered our distress call. 12 humans crossed the void to reach us. They repaired our failing systems. They gave their supplies. One of them gave his life. When the swarm returned, those 12 humans fought 17 bioships to protect us. Their ship was destroyed. They nearly died. But they would not retreat. They would not abandon us. And when all seemed lost, a human fleet arrived. 37 ships that crossed distances no fleet should have crossed. At speeds that defy explanation. They came because other humans called for help. I do not understand humanity. I do not know how they do what they do. I only know what I witnessed. We believed we were alone in the void, abandoned by a universe that had forgotten us. We were wrong. Humanity remembered. And when no help was coming, they came anyway. Not for glory, not for gain, not for alliance or politics or profit. They came because somewhere in the human soul lives an impossible truth, that no one should die alone in the dark if there is a single hand that can reach them. The Hollow Swarm fled from humans. For the first time in recorded history, they retreated. Not because humans are the strongest or the most advanced, but because humans would not stop, they would not give up, they would fight until the last breath for people they had never met. The galaxy has underestimated humanity. We dismissed them as young and crude and unimportant. We were wrong. I recommend that the Galactic Council reconsider its position on human relations. Not because humanity is powerful, though they are. Not because they are useful, though they are. But because they are something the galaxy desperately needs. They are good, and in a universe of darkness and silence and endless void, that is the rarest thing of all. Yethra signed her name and sent the report. Then she went to the window and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were flying through the black, looking for others who needed help. She was certain of it. It was simply what they did. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the humans came, and nothing would ever be the same.